Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, I am very glad to welcome you again to our lecture. It is within a series of lectures that I am delivering entitled Human Rights and Media Tracking. So, the lecture of today is titled Human Development. I do believe that human development is part and parcel of human rights projects in general. So we cannot, for example, implement the premises of human rights projects without, of course, paying attention to human development. So today we are going to shed light on what do you mean by development in the first instance. I think that we have seen already in our previous lectures, for example, we have dealt with the question of development journalism, and we have seen also how human rights, for example, have developed throughout history. So today we are going to focus on the human capital, and especially how human beings, for example, how they develop and what are the premises of this development. So we are going to just tackle this interplay between human beings and development. In the first instance, we are going to define and understand the concept of development in relationship to many domains and many fields of study. Then we are going to tackle the question of human development. Then later on, we are going to see some examples from Morocco. Well, so before even tackling the objectives of this lecture, I would like to refer you, because when we talk about human development, when we talk about the living standard, for example, when we talk about the idea of the quality or life quality, for example, when we talk about economic growth, economic development, in addition to development of the values, of the virtues, for example, that we all share in our communities. We should, of course, make allusion to one of the outstanding thinkers of this economic development and human development in general. Of course, you know this scholar. Of course, he lays the foundation for understanding human development, not only in economic terms, but also he expands, of course, this understanding to freedoms and people's choices. So his theory is very fantastic, and it's very relevant to the question of human rights. It's very relevant to the question of media tracking, and it's very relevant to human development in general. This person or this scholar, he is a Nobel Prize laureate, and he is Indian. His name, of course, I think that you know him, Amartya Sen. So he has published so many books about human development, and even the United Nations, for example, the project or program of the human development is very, they people there, so they are very inspired by the work of Amartya Sen. So he is, as I have said, he is a Nobel Prize, of course, in economic sciences. So according to him, so this is just maybe a very fresh beginning of the that shows, of course, to what extent human development is very crucial to implementing human rights. So according to him, we live in a world of unprecedented opulence. So this is, of course, this quotation is taken from his masterpiece, magnum opus book entitled Development as Freedoms. So that was a very important book. And as I have said, even people or members of the United Nations, so of course they are very inspired by this book. We live in a world of unprecedented opulence, of a kind that would have been hard even to imagine a century or two ago. There have also been remarkable changes beyond the economic sphere. The 20th century has established democratic and participatory governance as the preeminent model of political organization. Concepts of human rights and political liberty are now very much a part of the prevailing rhetoric. People live much longer on the average than even before. Also, the different regions of the globe are now more closely linked than they have ever been. This is so not only in the fields of trade, commerce, and communication, but also in terms of interactive ideas and ideals. So this is something very important in Amartya Sen's work. So he underscores, of course, the importance of empowering individuals and enabling them to achieve capabilities that contribute, of course, to a meaningful, fulfilling life. So according to Amartya Sen, so human development doesn't concern just economic growth. It's not about, for example, scientific indexes, no, but it extends to something very important. It extends to human rights, it extends to political liberty, it extends also to ideals, for example, and to interactive ideas. So this is what we mean by human development. And Amrita Amartya Sen, so of course, has postulated something which is very important, is that this human development should be inclusive. It shouldn't just include, for example, just economic, scientific indexes, numbers, statistics. No, human development should concern the whole of humanity. Should concern our values also, our ideas, our human rights, our humane, okay, project. So this is something very important that by which we can, of course, begin our lecture today, because I do believe that this lecture is going to summarize all the things, for example, that I have said before in our previous lectures about human rights, about media tracking, about development journalism, about non-government organizations, for example, and their work and their job. So this today we are going like to summarize all those lectures in this one, in order to tackle this question of human development, and to what extent, of course, this theory and this development studies, to what extent it promotes, of course, human rights. So in the light of this Amartya Sen theoretical framework, we have set up these, or we are going to see this lecture. There's lecture objectives. So the first one, we're going to understand the concept of development. What do you mean by development in the first instance, and its significance worldwide? Secondly, we are going to identify the concept of human development, as I have said. So we're going to tackle the interplay between the two, to what extent they are overlapped. Analyze the role of government policies, social programs, and international partnerships in Morocco's human development initiatives. So we're going to shed more light on these issues by giving you and providing you with some examples from the Moroccan kingdom. Examine the relationship between economic growth and human development. So this is something very important, because sometimes even when we hear the concept of development in our mind, it's about economy, it's about science, it's about statistics. No, it's about numbers. No, this time it's also about the idea growth. Okay, it's not just economic growth, but it's about ideas. It's about human rights. So the first question, for example, that we should ask in this very important context is development. What's in a name? What do you mean by development? According to Amartya Sen, so today's lecture, of course, will be based on Amartya Sen's theory of development. Why? Because it is worth mentioning this scholar's masterpiece book, Development as Freedom, because this is something very important in our context. So according to him, development consists of the removal of various types of unfreedoms that leave people with little choice and little opportunity of exercising their reasoned agency. The removal of substantial unfreedoms, it is argued here, is constitutive of development. So according to Amartya Sen, so of course the process of improving, for example, the quality of life, economy, for example, the quality of well-being, and even people. So of course it is very related to setting up unfreedoms, because if there is no freedom, so we cannot implement anything, not just a human rights project, for example. We cannot deal with anything. So setting up freedom is something very important. and removing, of course, various types of unfreedoms. So this is something very important because we cannot create, we cannot engage in innovation, in creativity without, of course, living and enjoying our well-being in a very healthy, free atmosphere. So with liberty, with freedom, so at that time we can, for example, of course, implement our human rights project, and we can even fulfill all our humane activities. So traditionally, development was viewed mainly in terms of economic growth. But as you see here, it is all the time measured, okay, by increased income, industrialization, national productivity sometimes. However, this modern perspective, as it is elucidated by Amartya Sen, so it is very innovative, and of course it emphasizes a more holistic approach where development, for example, includes social, political, and environmental dimensions. So I think that we have already tackled these issues deeply when we talked about environmental protection, climate change, for example, and so many other social, cultural, political issues. So development here aims not only for economic growth but also for social equality. So this is also something that is constitutive of development. So development here also, it is about the development in the educational sphere, development in healthcare, development in human rights, development in sustainable resources management. So all these things, so this is what's new, in fact, about Amartya Sen's theory, and later on I will give you the source if you would like to get deeper into, of course, his theory, because this is something very important, because especially when dealing with media tracking and of course, human rights. Development, what is in a name? So according to Sen, development can be seen, it is argued here, as a process of expanding the real freedoms that people enjoy. So it's all the time. This scholar emphasizes, this philosopher, because he is a philosopher, a specialist in economic development. So he emphasizes this, of course, question of relating and affiliating freedom with development. You cannot reach full development either in your society, your social issues, environmental issues, political issues, educational issues, for example, without, of course, relating that development to freedom, without making people, of course, without making them have access to freedom. So freedom, this is something very important, of course, in establishing what we call development. Focusing on human freedoms contrasts with narrower views of development, such as identifying development with the growth of gross national product or with the rise in personal income. So as you see, or with industrialization, or with technological advance, or with social modernization. So development requires the removal of major sources of unfreedom. Poverty, for example, as well as tyranny, poor economic opportunities, as well as systematic social deprivation, neglect of public facilities, as well as intolerance or overactivity of repressive states. So you see here, this is something very significant and very symbolic. What Amartya Sen is saying here is that we cannot reach development, for example, and with while, for example, there is this sources of unfreedom. Why? When you have poverty, for example, when you have tyranny, when you have human rights abuse, so of course we cannot reach development at all. So in order to reach development, so and I mean here by development, it's the same, I align with the argument of Amartya Sen. So if you would like to reach full, as I have, inclusive, full development, so of course you should finalize with those issues of poverty, tyranny, dictatorship, for example, all sorts of systematic social deprivation, destitution, for example, human rights abuse, and many others. So this is the first step, of course, to have full development. You should create a very healthy atmosphere where all peoples, for example, in their communities can enjoy a very peaceful life, a very free atmosphere, a very healthy atmosphere where they can, of course, perform their jobs very well, because you cannot create under pressure. It's impossible. So you should, if you would like to contribute to the well-being of your or to the welfare of your communities, for example, so you should enjoy in the first instance your freedom. So this is something very important that is postulated in this masterpiece book, okay, that is entitled Development as Freedoms. Another global perspective, of course, that attempts to define and facilitates our understanding of human development. I have told you from the very beginning that we're going to see development in the first instance, then we're going to relate it to human development. And of course, when we talk about human development, we cannot ignore the efforts, of course, delivered by the United Nations. So, according to the United Nations, it of course introduces us to something which is very important. This is global, is the global perspective of human development. So human development is about expanding the richness of human life rather than simply the richness of the economy. So you see here, it's again the same idea. So human development focuses on expanding people's freedoms and opportunities while improving at the same time their quality life or their quality of life. So this is something very important. It includes what? It includes enhancing access to education, healthcare, income, and participation in society. So this is something very important. So the United Nations sometimes development program. This is a key reference in the field of human development that you can even consult later on if you would like to delve into these ideas of human development. So it offers the United Nations, for example, website. If you go to this website, so you will find that this is a key reference. Why? Because this organization, of course, offers many data analysis, for example, insights on global progress in health, education, climate change, environmental issues, for example, and at the same time, essential components of development. So you see here, it focuses on people and their opportunities and choices. So this is human development, is creating to people within their communities opportunities, and letting them, of course, make their own choices. So this is also something very important. So here it lies, of course, the concept of freedom. If you don't enjoy freedom, and we have talked about it while dealing with human rights, so you should, of course, be endowed with freedom in order, of course, to participate in your society, in order to contribute to your communities, and in order to be very active citizens. So you cannot perform your citizenship, your active citizenship, without, of course, enjoying your freedom. So freedom, this is the first maybe step in order to reach this what we call human development. So this is something very important that is delivered by the United Nations Development Program, and it provides us with a global perspective wherever you go, and whoever you are, for example, whatever you are, regardless of your sex, of your gender, of your color, for example, of your nationality. So this human development, of course, is very related to you and to all people or individuals all over the globe. So this is a human development from a global perspective. And as I have said, we have today another perception of human development. It transcends, of course, our notion of economic development to our ideas, to our opportunities, to choices, for example, and to the quality of life, either at the level of our society, at the level of politics, at the level of education and at all levels. So it's not just about economy, but it's the humane development. It's the life quality development. It's your ideas development, your creativity development. So this is something very very important within that we can, for example, dig because it's very important within the framework of human rights. Another definition, so this is another thing that is of course delivered by the United Nations development program. So this is the human development index, and if you consult the website of this organization, so you can find many reports, annual reports. Sometimes you will find them about measuring, okay, the development programs to assess what to assess all the countries' overall achievement in three key areas of human development. It's about health, it's about education, it's about standard living. So as I have said, if you would like to dig into these questions, so please go and read Amartya Sen's books, because they are very wonderful, very relevant within the context of this question of the standard of living, within this question of development as freedom. So this is something very important. So United Nations, of course, so sometimes it even examines life expectancy, educational attainment, gross national income, for example. Sometimes even it controls, it examines to what extent, for example, this question of health, education, and standard of living is are very progressed, for example, in countries all over the world. So this is about human development, as I have said in the very beginning. So we are going to tackle so many examples, especially from the Kingdom of Morocco, to be more illustrative and see this question of human development, the strategies, how we can reach, of course, this human development. And I'm going to shed light on Moroccan, of course, strategies that have been, of course, implemented in order to promote human beings welfare. So these issues, of course, they are preponderant. Why? Because you cannot, as I have said, you cannot exercise, you cannot implement human rights principles, human rights premises, without, of course, paying more attention to human development. So this is something very important, and I think that all countries all over the world, so they are, of course, very engaged. Why? Because if you would like to promote your country, so of course your country should have a very pertinent, tangible, palpable strategy, a very palpable plan. And that plan, of course, it should consider this human development issue, because this is something very very important nowadays, especially we have so many unfortunately speaking, we have so many crises, we have so many issues, many sometimes we do still have destitution, we still have poverty, we still have this question of environmental crisis, we still have pollution all over the globe, we still have water scarcity. So we have many rising up to date sometimes issues, and in order to of course to find very effective resolutions and solutions to those issues. So I told you in the previous lectures that sometimes, and this is the global perspective of human development, sometimes we have global issues, global problems, and we should find global solutions. So this is at the level of this global perspective, and this is sometimes this is something very very crucial that should be part and parcel of our countries, of course, strategies, either, for example, short-term strategies or even long-term strategies. We have already spoken about the efficient role that non-government organizations, for example, play in promoting human development, in taking care of people, for example, people with disabilities, vulnerable people in our society, also gender inequality, and so many other rising up issues, unfortunately speaking. Now we are going to see this concretization of human development by studying some examples from the Kingdom of Morocco. So, so this is the map. So we're going to deal with the human development in Morocco in order to, of course, question and interrogate to what extent or what are the strategies that Morocco, for example, has implemented in order to promote so many sectors of course, that are very related to human development. So Morocco really has made strides in this question of human development, and this journey, it's a long journey. It's not, of course, a short one. It's a long journey of strategies, of plans, and really, as we are going to see, it has made really notable progress over the past few decades because of many human development initiatives, okay, that focus on issues of healthcare, education, social promotion, for example, social protection, economic growth, and many others. So even the government, the Moroccan government, of course, has initiated, of course, many programs like the new human development model, for example. This is something very important. And another program, it's the NDH program. Okay, it's the National Initiative for Human Development. Even if you can later on maybe cancel the website of the United Nations. Okay, you can find that report about the human development initiative in Morocco. So that initiative, or all those strategies, they have, of course, one purpose: to reduce destitution, to reduce poverty, and to promote social inclusion, to take care of people with disabilities, to take care of vulnerable people in our society. And I think that we have already introduced or get introduced to many videos that of course elucidate to what extent this human development is part and parcel of Morocco's strategy in general. So we are going to see concretely, because we need some examples to know what do we mean by human development. This is an up-to-date, of course, theory inspired by Amartya Sen. So we are going to see this cultural development, social development, economic development, political development, educational development, even architecture development. So we're going to assess and evaluate these, of course, or this human development project in Morocco, because we need something, okay, that we can so that we can illustrate what do you mean by human development concretely. And of course, I think that I cannot speak about any country except my own, and I feel very comfortable because I know my country and I know all the strategies that my country has undergone in order to promote human development. If we have time, maybe we can exchange ideas about your Indian government, for example, human development project. Why not? Well, so as I have said, we are going to see all the manifestations of this, of course, development, and we are going to see to what extent Morocco, of course, is taking care of this, because it has this global, of course, perspective, and it would like to be among the knowledge, of course, based. The global knowledge based economy. At the same time, it is an ambitious country that, of course, would like to be part, okay, or within the human development project all over the world. So let's see some examples. So this is a political development, and it is very manifested in in the constitutional reform that took place in 2011, and that was really a landmark in the history of Morocco. Why? Because this constitution, of course, it increased political transparency, accountability, and at the same time citizen participation within in the political sphere. And this is something very important, and it was a reform indeed, okay, during the Arab Spring, and it was very efficient because it suggests, of course, the powers of the parliament and the judiciary, and gave, of course, citizens greater roles in political processes at all. So here it's this is what we call the inclusive political development or political human development. So this is a landmark, this constitution. Also, there is another strategy, is decentralization. Sometimes even we call it advanced decentralization and regionalization. What does it mean? It means distributing power all over cities in Morocco, all over. Of course, it's like you in India, you have states. In Morocco, we don't have states, but we have regions. And each region, of course, is very responsible for what's going on within its community. So this is it. It's distributing political power more evenly across the whole country. So this centralization, of course, it promotes local governance, and this is something very important, of course, in the democratic project and in a human development project in general. So this political development is part and parcel of that umbrella. It's an umbrella term of human development. So this is something very important. Why? Because the decision, either in order not to have this monopolization of decision, for example, making, so we have this decentralization across the country in order to have this local governance. Strengthening civil society organization. So this is something very important, and I talked about it in the previous lectures. So, and now you know the pivotal role of non-government organizations in advocating for human rights. So of course, if the country strengthens those organizations, so this is for a purpose, and the purpose is to advocate for human rights in the community. So of course, Morocco has supported this growth of human rights, for example, organizations, sometimes even environmental organizations, that in women's empowerment organization also. So there are a lot, for example, of issues that those organizations tackle. And of course, the strategy of the country is encouraging, of course, those strategies in order to foster a more active civil society, a more active civil citizen. As I have said, this is something which is very important in human development. It's to have active civil citizenship. This is something very important. So, because we cannot progress, we cannot develop with passive citizens, with careless citizens. It's impossible. So sometimes even the country should invest in the human capital, because some, even for example, if you read the previous reports by the United Nations, so you will find that they invest on the human capital. And sometimes, believe me, sometimes the most powerful power in the country is the human capital. This is the most powerful thing. If the human capital is well educated, is very aware, is very conscious of the rights, is very active, so of course you will reach all those political, for example, development goals. So this is something very important that we should all work on in order to have an inclusive, rich and inclusive society. So these are, of course, as I have said, the manifestations of the political development, which is part of the umbrella term human development. Another example, so let's tackle, this is the economic development. as I have said, sometimes when we think about human development, we just think about economy. Yes, economy is part, but among many other issues that we should take into consideration. So these are some strategies, for example, that the Moroccan Kingdom has taken into consideration in order to promote human development. Renewable energy initiative. So I think even we saw this in our lecture on the right to environment. So Morocco really is a global leader when it concerns this renewable energy development. So this is something very important, especially in establishing the solar energy and the wind energy. So like the examples I provided in the previous lecture in Ouarzazate, so students who attended those previous sessions, so they know what I am talking about. Industrial acceleration plan also. So this is launched in 2014. So that was a plan. Of course, it aimed to diversify Morocco's industries in order, of course, for one purpose, which is, of course, human development manifested in economic development. Also, there is this question of tourism and hospitality. So, tourism, you know that Morocco is a tourist resort by excellence, and this tourism is taken by the Moroccan kingdom as an industry, as an economy also, and as an economic driver also. Why? And this strategy, of course, was manifested in promoting like historical cities, in refining like old cities, for example, refining all the historical monuments, promoting even old cities, old medinas, what we call in Arabic old medinas. And this is and one example of this strategy is the vision 2020. So that was an initiative, of course, that attracted 20 million tourists annually. And you see this strategy, of course, of paying attention, promoting tourism and hospitality in Morocco. So this is a strategy among many others to promote economic development, and at the same time, when you promote economic development, you reach human development, because this is something very important to reach a prosperous, for example, a country. So you should pay attention to all the sources that you have in your community. Either you have human sources, you should invest in your human sources. You have natural sources, you should invest in those natural resources. So it depends. So the country, of course, should work with this strategy in order, of course, to exercise the premises of what we mean by human development. Higher educational development, also this is part and parcel of human development. This is something, according to Malcolm X, education is the passport to a better future. So we cannot reach a better future. We cannot reach active citizenship without, of course, implementing a very effective educational strategy in our countries. And this is something very important. So education also was part and parcel of this human development project in Morocco. So Morocco, you see, we do have like public and private university expansion across Morocco. We have many universities, and they some of them, so they have this high ranking all over the world, like the university in which I teach, Kadi Ayad University. And there are also private universities, and there are private half private and half public, like Al Akhawain University in Ifrane city, for example. There is also the Polytechnical University of Mohammed VI. There is also the International University in Rabat, the American University in Rabat. So there are so many universities, and some of them they are public, some of them are private. But anyway, so this expansion of universities, this is for, of course, establishing this project or this strategy of human development. Partnerships with international institutions. So this is it's part and parcel of all our universities in Morocco. So we collaborate with, of course, universities, international institutions. We do have many scholarships, for example. We collaborate with French institutions, with American institutions, with the European Union institutions. We have like Erasmus scholarships, for example, the Fulbright scholarship for our students, and sometimes we collaborate with Asian universities. So this is also part of and parcel of this educational development. Why? Because we do believe that we can reach our aims and objectives via exercising what we call mobility exchanges, cultural exchanges, in order to gain this global expertise. Either, for example, global expertise for professors, staff, or even for our students. So this is also something which is very important. We do have also technical and vocational educational and training. So this is also, we have many, there are many institutions, for example, that offer courses aligned with the needs of key industries, for example, such as agriculture, sometimes like mining, for example, like in some industries. And this is also, it helps to reduce unemployment, because sometimes even students couldn't pursue their academic, for example, careers, so they can deviate and they will find a space where they can perform their creativity. This is something that, of course, they can go to this vocational sort of education and training. Because sometimes even you may have talented people in academia, but at the same time you may have talented creative people in those educational institutions or in those vocational institutions. So this is also part of promoting, part and parcel of Morocco's strategy to promote this human development premise. Yes. Media development also. So I think that this is very related to our thematic of these lectures, human rights and media tracking, and we have really tackled this issue. But let's see how Morocco, for example, has developed this issue. So it's via television, radio channels. In fact, we have so many television networks. For example, we have SNRT. We have also what we call Deuxième. We do have the Sport TV, Riyadiyya, and some other private channels. We do have also Media TV and many other local, of course, channels like you here in India. Print media also, there are many Moroccan accredited journals, newspapers. They of course they collaborate, of course, with many organizations in order to share public opinion discussing local national issues. Also digital media. So nowadays, as in everywhere, so also in Morocco, we just find this expansion of internet access that has led to a surge in digital media outlets. So we find like Express. This is like an online digital newspaper. We find Dia Biladi also. This is of course a newspaper, online newspaper. So these platforms, so these are digital platforms. In addition, of course, to the platform that you are familiar with, like Instagram and Facebook and many other youth generation or younger generation platform. And in Morocco, what you should know is that we do have television channels or print media, or even digital newspapers in three languages, sometimes even in four languages. So in Arabic, some in French, in English, and sometimes even in Amazigh language. So these are our constitutional, of course, official languages. Of course, it's Arabic, Amazigh language, but we do have also the second language, French. Then the foreign language is English, and most of the time we find also like television programs in Spanish, also in the Spanish language. So we have like a variety of languages, a variety of cultural aspects. But the country also has, of course, promoted this question and has paid more attention to media development because it knows to what extent media development nowadays is very important in raising the consciousness of the communities and sharing public opinion, and at the same time tackling many specific issues, many like sensitive issues. So the role of media is very important, and we have already talked about development journalism, and we have seen to what extent they are very crucial to our societies. Social development. This is also something that is very palpable and tangible in Morocco's strategy. We do have this national initiative for human development. This is a comprehensive social program. It's aimed at reducing poverty, promoting social inclusion, taking care of the younger generation, for example, supporting children, also the most vulnerable segment in our society, taking care of disempowered people, misrepresented people, underrepresented people, for example, marginalized rural people. So this of course it takes consideration, and it considers, of course, all this national initiative. Really, it is very comprehensive, and it governs all the most important issues, for example, that our country, of course, aims to go beyond. So there is also women's empowerment strategy. So this is also part and parcel of the social development. Of course, when we talk about development, human development, within it we talk about women's development. So this is something very automatic, very arbitrary. It isn't separated at all. So Morocco has made also significant strides in promoting, of course, in social development, and especially in promoting women status quo. There are many organizations, of course, that take care of women, especially marginalized women in rural areas. This Ramed also, this is something very important. It provides health insurance coverage for low-income Moroccans. It makes healthcare more accessible, especially to vulnerable, poor, destituted people. So this is also something very important. And Rami, this is a very efficient program that really paved the way for promoting, of course, the situation of the poor population. So this is something very important. Cultural development also. So Morocco also has undertaken many strategies, because this is part of the human development. So you see from these examples, and this is my purpose. It's not just to introduce the strategies or that Morocco has undertaken, but to illustrate to you how, or the nature of human development. How should it be? So it should be like this. It should be very inclusive. It should include like economic, political, educational, environmental issues, architecture issues, also then cultural issues. So it's about not just numbers, but it's about mentality development. It's about idea development. It's about ideals development. So it's about the quality of life in general, that gathers all these elements in an inclusive way without any separation. So again, you see, this is part of the umbrella term human development. So the cultural development. So Morocco also has undertaken several projects to preserve, of course, its cultural heritage. So you see here, including the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, like for example the historic Medinas of Fez, Marrakesh, Meknes also. So the Moroccan government, along with international organizations, so has funded the restoration of historic sites and traditional cities, arts and crafts. So this is part of Morocco's strategy to promote, of course, its cultural heritage. This is something very important because we do have like mini historical cities, and this reviving project, this is also within the umbrella term of human development. There is also a national festival. Sometimes even we do organize international festivals. Morocco hosts numerous cultural festivals that showcase, of course, its diverse heritage, such as the Fez Festival of World Sacred Music, Sofi Music, the Marrakesh International Film Festival, Mawazin Festival also in Rabat, Ahwash Festival in Ouarzazate. So these events, for example, they promote Moroccan culture. We have also Hassani festivals in Laayoune and in our southern, for example, cities. So in many cities across Morocco, so you find those festivals, and they have, of course, they have purpose. They are not just arbitrary, but they have the purpose of promoting the cultural heritage, promoting, of course, Moroccan cultural identity. So this is also something that is within human development. If you don't hold an identity, so you will become just fluid. So I told you from the very beginning, so human development, it's about promoting active citizens. And active citizens, so the first thing they should know is their identity, their place in their community. Then, of course, they can embrace that global vision. So this is something very important, and this is part and parcel of Morocco's strategy. As I have said, it's the INDH. So this is something very important. Also, support for traditional art. So Morocco is very famous of traditional art in many domains, in architecture, for example, even in weaving, in pottery, in metalwork, for example. So this is also a strategy, and we have programs like Maison de l'Artisan. It's the house of craftsmanship. So this is a program that was initiated, of course, by the Moroccan Kingdom in order to promote and to support for this traditional art. And sometimes even there are many like platforms that of course expose and introduce those, for example, arts products in many markets sometimes. Okay. Well, so now let's see also architecture development. So as I have said, this human development, it is very inclusive, and it includes all the aspects that you can imagine in your society. And this is something why we should pay attention to this human development. Nowadays, even we talk about human development and like digital generations. So this is also something very important, and that will be, of course, the topic, and that the United Nations, for example, is going to tackle in 2025. So now they are just preparing the report for 2025, and it will be about human development and digital information, for example, and how people, for example, adapt or should be adapted to digital information and digital media especially. These are, of course, uprising issues, and we should, of course, be very we should take care of those issues, and we should look for resolutions to them. Okay, architecture development again is part of that human development project. In Morocco, we have traditional architecture, a fantastic, amazing. Like we have courtyard, we have riads, like in Fez, in Marrakesh. We have homes; they are often centered around the courtyard, with gardens sometimes, like the riad. And really, they are very big, too large. We have decorative details like zellij, we call it mosaic tiles. Okay, they are carved, sometimes stucco, geometric like designs. So either in public or private buildings. So this, of course, it shows Morocco's cultural heritage, as the photo that I showed you in the very beginning, if, with the map of Morocco. So it's the Hassan second mosque in Casablanca. And if you see that mosque, it speaks out Moroccan traditional art and Moroccan decorative details, Moroccan traditional architecture by excellence. Contemporary urban architecture, as any country all over the world, we have traditional architecture, and we have the contemporary urban architecture. So this is it's in major cities like Casablanca, Rabat, Marrakesh, for example. So they have experienced this rapid, okay, urban expansion. Like we have commercial neighborhood, for example, or commercial centers, sometimes mini blocks of flats, mini buildings, and so on and so forth. Um, Also, modern housing development. Also, this is also very familiar in many countries. So, because of this. Crowded population, the increase in population. So we have this modern housing development. But anyway, Morocco still, of course, preserves its traditional, cultural, of course, heritage in all domains, not just in architecture, but in all sectors. So you see now what, for example, Amartya Sen postulated concerning human development as freedoms, and what the United Nations global vision or global perspective, for example, what they have all postulated concerning the issue, because it does matter. It does matter to know and to recognize the premises of human development, especially when we talk within the framework of human rights and media tracking. As I have said, this human development shouldn't consider that just economic growth, but it should expand to other cultural, architecture, educational, political, social spheres, in order to have an inclusive human development, of course, life, and in order to advocate for not just for life, but for the quality of life. So this is what matters. It's the quality of life. Sometimes, yes, we all enjoy the right to life, but we should question and interrogate what kind of life we do enjoy in our communities. So this human development, of course, project, so it advocates for having that quality of life. So this is something very important. As a conclusion, it's a quotation by Amartya Sen. So I told you from the very beginning that our lecture is based on that master, on Amartya Sen's magnum opus book, Development as Freedom. So economic growth without investment in human development is unsustainable and unethical. So you cannot even achieve, this is very significant, we cannot achieve economic growth. So because I know that all countries, so they aspire to have a very good standard in economy. This is their right, it's fine. But of course, it shouldn't be to the detriment of people, of human development. It shouldn't be to the detriment of human beings' freedom. No. So any human development that doesn't take into consideration, of course, ethical issues, sustainable development. So of course, we cannot. It cannot reach its goals and its aim. So economic growth without this question of without this ethical question, without taking into consideration people's human mind, for example, people's ideas, people's ideals also. So it will be just unsustainable and unethical. These are the references for students who would like to dig into these questions later on. Thank you for your attention.